You have an idea. You want to tell it to the world, but you don't know where to start. That's where Anchor comes in. They have the tools for you to edit, produce, and record your idea right from your phone or computer. It's the easiest way to reach and grow your audience. They publish for you to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major platforms. And to top it all off, they match you with advertisers so you can earn from your passion and your wonderful idea. So tell me, what are you waiting for? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and follow your dream.
Just a quick heads up on this episode. This interview was shot and the individual has asked us to keep her anonymous, so that's what we did. I really hope one day we're able to share this story with names and everything, but because of fear of retaliation from family and from the church, she did not want to share her name. I really hope that one day we're able to get past that, and that even if we disagree with doctrine or with whatever it is, that we're able to, really engage with people and love people regardless of whether we stand on the same page when it comes to our different ideas or whatever it is. I hope you enjoy the interview and that it helps you to, create safe spaces for people to share their stories in the future.
And yeah. And how's it been like? How's your relationship with your family been throughout these years, and more specifically when you came out?
My relationship with my family is kind of how do I put this? It's off and on. Like, we'll have good times and we'll have bad times. When technically, I didn't ever come out. I actually kind of fell out of the closet in a sense.
How is that? Why did you say fall out? How did you fall out? What's the difference? Maybe that's what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, so a lot of people, when they're wanting to come out, or when they have those feelings and they're ready to tell people, they decide what they're going to say, who they're going to tell. And then they sit down with the person and talk with them, right? Stuff like that. And it varies for different people. But when I guess fell out of the closet, it wasn't anything planned. I actually didn't tell anyone. People just started realizing, and specifically my parents, they saw something that I had said to a girl that I liked, and they realized this conversation that she's having is not like a typical friendship type of conversation, and everything I kind of went down from there. There was quite a bit of shaming, and I love my parents and I know that they were scared, but it hurt a lot when you hear your parents say stuff like, I grew up loving God. I love working for the church and just spending time serving God. And to hear your parents say, like, you've gone too far, like you can't ever go to heaven now, or God's going to send you to hell for this, things like that, that really, really hurts. And so I guess that's kind of what I mean by falling out of the closet. So I never actually told them. They just found out.
Now, when they found out, their reaction was not positive. Is that's what I heard? Like, they had very negative connotations, but not only that, they were being a little bit aggressive towards you. I mean, as a person.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, when they started talking to me, like every day they would be telling me, I can't believe you're lesbian. Like, you're a lesbian. You're saying all this stuff to a girl. You're a lesbian. And at that point in my life, I didn't even know for sure what I was. I just realized that I had started to like this girl. And then, I had just told her a few days before all of this blew up. that I liked her. And I said, she was my best friend. I told her I was really confused. I didn't know what to think. She was the only person in the world that I trusted with this information. And I said, I don't know if I'm bi. I don't know if I just like girls. I mean, I've been with guys, but I don't know. It's just, I've always been awkward with guys. I've been kind of scared of them when we get in relationships. And she was helping me try to be able to understand what I was going through. She wasn't into girls, but I guess because we were so close that she was completely fine with, helping me figure things out just by talking and, talking and helping me to understand my feelings, I guess.
Just being supportive, for you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and then with my parents, them telling me, sometimes I wonder if they had never said over and over to me, you're a lesbian. I can't believe you're a lesbian. I don't know where that would have gone, because at that point in my life, I thought, oh my God, God's going to hate me. Like, I'm not going to go to heaven. He is going to punish me for all of this stuff. And, I had not done anything with the girl. All I had said was that I liked her. And, I was just trying to figure this out for myself. So hearing these things from my parents, would God really hate me? Would God really not allow me to go to heaven just for telling someone that I liked her and just having the feelings? And so the things my parents were saying, it just confused me more, to be honest.
So,
and then there were even, go ahead.
So even though you didn't have any sexual activity, like you were not sexually active with anyone, you had just kind of come to this realization, your parents were still like very condemning and like telling you that you were going to hell just because of having a certain orientation.
Right. Exactly.
How did that make you feel, like just internally, and like how did that shape your picture of God?
Yeah. There were many, many times where I would pray, either every night or almost every night, praying to God, like, God, I don't know if this is right. I don't know. I know in the Bible, it says certain things, but then when you study it, like there was a time I sat down with my Bible and I studied it out, and I even went so far as to try to figure out the Greek and the Hebrew, and I don't know which one's in the New Testament. I was studying the New Testament, and where it talks about homosexuals, and there was a verse where it says, I don't remember the verse off the top of my head. It's been a few years since I was studying this, but it talks about homosexuals and how it's bad. And when I was looking at the Greek or Hebrew, that the biblical language, it actually meant, instead of homo, it meant hetero. And the verse was talking about basically in the original language, out of marriage. So before marriage. And it was interesting how they translated it. And so I'm like, well, if that's wrong, then what about all of these other verses? So I was still trying, with everything my parents were telling me, I was trying to figure it out for myself. I was actually praying really hard that the feelings would go away. But even through all of that, there were times I just laid in my bed at night. I would put a pillow over my face and just sob, because the things that I was feeling, they just wouldn't go away, and not having a support system. And I didn't want to overload my best friend with all those, the feelings I was having. With the pillow, I didn't want people to hear me crying. There were so many nights like that.
And now that you have, fall out of the kind of out of the closet, how has your life turned since then?
Well, there's been positive things. There's been negative things. most of my friends have stayed with me. We're still friends. There's been a few that I have lost because of it. And, I hate losing friends. Ever since I was a kid, I would try to keep every single friend that I made. And, going through life, it's not always possible, but I really value people's friendship. And so when you're losing a friend, it's hard, but then there's a point where you realize, like, if they aren't going to, uplift me, if they're not going to accept me, if they're going to just keep these friends that I had were more on the conservative side of the Adventism, and all they were doing every time we talked was trying to convert me back to being straight. And I'm like, I appreciate their values and their beliefs, but I don't think that that's what a friend is for. I think a friend should just be there when you need them. You know what I mean? And so I have lost some friends. I've kept some friends. Things with my parents, like I said in the beginning, it's up and down. There was actually a time when there was a possibility of getting kicked out of the church. There was talk in the church about everything that was going on, and because Adventists don't believe in homosexuality, that it is, something that is okay, there was talk of kicking me out unless I gave up my lifestyle. And so there was a lot of crying, a lot of praying that I did. I talked with some friends, and the amazing thing happened. I was working at a camp, and it was right when I had to make the decision by that night what I was going to do. And I went down to the boat dock, and I was looking at the water. There was like the lights from across the lake were shining on the water. It was really beautiful. And I just sat there and I was crying my heart out, talking to God. I didn't know what to do. And I was probably there for close to an hour, and I prayed, God, I need someone to come talk to me. I need someone to be here with me. Even if they don't say anything, just please have someone come. And probably about 10 minutes later, one of the golf carts drove by, and then it kept going for a little bit and then just stopped. And a few seconds later, one of the guys came up. He's like, "Hey, are you okay? I saw you down here. Just wanted to check on you." And I just burst off in tears. And he sat there with me for a good 2 or 3 hours, and we just talked about everything. And I had not come out to anyone at camp because I believed, if I'm in a place that does not believe in homosexuality, that's something that I should respect. So I didn't come out to anyone, and I even made a pact to myself, or a promise to myself, if any kid comes up to me with these problems, I'm not the person they should talk to because I'm biased. I would just take them to the camp pastor. And
so you were willing to even respect the churches or the camp's regulations, even they may not have respected your decisions. You were willing to respect their religious choices and interpretations, even
right.
if they did not agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I actually,
do you
that
think
night,
that, have you encountered, sorry for cutting you off, but
have you encountered
the opposite, where, some church that you have attended actually, or individuals that you have, met, do the same with you?
Explain a little bit more.
Do they respect your lifestyle? Do they respect that you're a human, after all? And they're not force feeding you, hey, go back to be straight because that's the only way of living, but rather respecting your choices. Have you encountered individuals from the church or that have done that? Maybe finishing this story we'll do that.
Yeah, well, I don't. There have been a few pastors that I have talked to that know my story. One of them, he's very not supportive of, my, not that he's supporting my lifestyle, not that, but he realizes that there are so many people in the Adventist church that would shame and that would disapprove and that would try to kick me out of the church. And so he is always there if I have like a question or if I need something. And he's very supportive of youth, especially in the church. And he's talked to me before. He said, "There's this person in my church. She is getting married to a transgender girl, and what would you say to the mom? The mom's very upset." And so things like that, I feel like kind of in the sense like he helps me. And then when there's situations like come up like that in his own church, I'm able to help him too, which I really appreciate that I'm also able to help people maybe understand it a little better and know how to react, because I don't want anyone to have to go through the same pain I went through with my parents. And I know parents, they love their children. They only want the best for them. I understand that. But they just don't always know how to respond to something. I guess that's devastating to them.
When you were at camp and the guy came, you guys talked, did he offer support or just encouragement at that time? I know you were finishing, so I wanted to capture that story.
Oh, yeah. So when we were talking, it was a lot of, he told me, he said, "I don't agree with the lifestyle, but I am no one to condemn you. I have so many sins in my life." And he's like, I'm not saying that that's a sin. It's just, what, I'm struggling with things. You're struggling with things. And he told me some Bible verses. He gave me some promises to claim, and we prayed together. And I actually ended up at that time, I was with a girl. I actually ended up breaking up with her. And I told the people of the church that I did break up with her, but I was not going to say that I was not a lesbian, because for me, that's just a part of who I am. I will always like girls, and it's not that I have to have a girlfriend or I have to get married or any of those things, but I will always like girls, and I don't know what will happen in the future. But at that time I did break up with her. And because I did do that, they acknowledged it and allowed me to keep my membership in the church.
Now, a lot of times when I've heard you mention this, like, okay, like the pastor or this person, and I think I even said it, like, it's like they don't agree with the lifestyle, what do they really mean by that? Is it like, what do you mean they don't agree with the lifestyle? Is it like the sexual activity, the identity? Like, I mean, there's so many things, like the way you go to the gym. I mean, that's part of your lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
So what do they tell you? Do they explain? Do they understand that there are differences in this conversation that is more like than just saying and lumping it all together?
Right. Yeah. So there's actually a few different things that, of how they explain like the lifestyle to me. So some people are talking about like actually just getting in a relationship, not even sexually, but just taking that step, getting in a relationship. Others are talking about actually having sexual activity, being intimate with people of the same sex, while still others are just talking about just even saying that you are a lesbian or whatever you identify as is still wrong, because that's not how God made us to be.
Okay, when I hear that, I just kind of like I'm going like there are a lot of things going through my head. Like, okay, so God made you heterosexual. I mean, that word was not even existent when, when God created Adam and Eve, or when God created you. Like, I mean, like that's just something that we have created to say people that like, the other sex, the other gender per
Right.
se.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of things here that is just like, you know, when I look at the Bible, right? When I look at what it says, it talks about, sexual activity. Like, for example, having someone that you sleep with before marriage, it's fornication, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
And someone that you sleep with when you're married, if it's not your spouse, is adultery. Like the
Right.
Bible doesn't necessarily say like I sanction heterosexual. I mean, heterosexual identity. I'm talking about identity. It talks about
Mm-hmm.
the acts, like heterosexual activity or homosexual activity. So, like, have you ever encountered someone that tells you like, yes, you can identify as a lesbian. That's who you are. That's the way that you're
Mm-hmm.
wired, and like maybe we can discuss about sexual activity or like the other part, like where are you standing? Maybe that's a better question. Where are you standing now?
Like, how do I
How do
feel
you
that
approach it,
it's
or
right?
how do you are going through the conversation yourself?
I don't think identifying as a lesbian is wrong. I don't. That's just a part of who I am. Um, that's just who I like, and I think that's fine. Um, Getting in a relationship, um, I still honestly don't think that's wrong. The only thing that I am still questioning if it's right or wrong, having been brought up that it's wrong. I didn't even know what a lesbian was until I was 12. I thought lesbians were from Lebanon, and so so trying to figure
Oh
out if
my.
marriage is okay um between a woman and another woman, that's still something that I'm questioning,
Okay.
trying to research and pray about.
Right, and you're going through that journey yourself, like,
Right.
but I mean, to the point that, identifying with something is not necessarily makes you a partaker of everything that comes with that term.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
do you think that people or like church members are just afraid? Like, do they have, is it because of fear that they don't want you to identify, or that they don't want other people to identify? Is it just like they're afraid that they're going to like live, you know, terrible lives or whatever it is?
Yeah, I don't really know. I think a lot of people have the stereotype as if you're gay or if you identify anything on that spectrum, that, like, say, just for lesbians, for instance, if you're a lesbian, then anytime you see a girl, you're going to like her and you're going to want to have sex with her. But that's not the case. Just like a guy, or just like a heterosexual guy or heterosexual girl, they like particular types of people. They find particular things attractive. They find particular things unattractive. It's the same with lesbians. We're still people. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Just because we come out as lesbian or whatever it is, doesn't mean that we've changed. We are still the same person that we always are. We're still going to have the same values. We're still going to have the same characteristics and personality. And I feel like that is something that they fear, that everything's changed.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So, I mean, like, as an Adventist, do you still go to church?
I do. I do. I'm going to be honest. Um, it's been
How
hard.
does it make you feel when you go to church?
It depends on it depends on the church. There's a church here where I live, and it's honestly one of the more liberal churches. I've only been to there once, and the reason I went was because I heard that it was very accepting of any person, any lifestyle. And then when I get there to the church, the pastor starts preaching. He was one of the founders of the church. And he says, the reason this church was made was because we had students here around us on this campus that felt like they couldn't belong anywhere, and they wanted to belong. They wanted to have a church they could go to without being what's the word? Judged, yes, without being judged. But the thing is, when I got there, I looked around the church and I saw people around me that were faculty, and specific faculty that had talked to me about being in that homosexual relationship and how it's wrong and that I shouldn't do it. And I thought to myself, even a church where I can supposedly be myself and just be okay and be completely chill there, I can't. And so going to church is really, when you're around a person that you have to be really careful around, like you're walking on eggshells because you don't want to upset them. Honestly, a lot of times how I feel when I go to church. I feel like I have to walk on eggshells to make sure I'm not going to disrupt anything or make anybody look at me weird or question things. So it's been hard to go to church. And, there are some times where I don't want to have to deal with that, and that I do stay home. And, I always read my Bible. If I do stay home, I spend time with God, but actually going to church is sometimes hard.
So how would you envision a change in the Adventist church that, brings more acceptance and like true love into who we are?
Mm-hmm. The ultimate church, I feel like, would, let me say this first. I believe that if the Seventh-day Adventist Church feels that homosexuality is wrong, that's completely fine. If that's what the whole church decides, I should not stand in the way of that, because I feel like God does have a special connection with the church as a whole. Now, here's another thing though. Churches that say that they're very accepting. Adventists always say, just come as you are. We're going to accept you. We love you just the way you are. But churches that do that, but they don't let them take part in anything. They don't let them, or only certain people talk to them, or, things like that. I feel like that's just wrong. They're not being included as a regular member would be. There's a pastor I know, and he says he has a gay guy that comes to his church. And he says, now I understand I can't make him an elder and I can't do all of these things, but I want him to have a job in the church. I want him to know he has a responsibility here. And growing up in the church, I that when someone has a responsibility in the church, when they have a job, they are so much more likely to stay in the church. And he said, that's what I want. I want him to keep coming. He even brings his boyfriend. I want his boyfriend to keep coming. So I gave him a job as working the sound system. That's a way that he can be involved. He doesn't have to be one up front as a leader. But it lets him know that he is wanted. It lets him know that he is loved. And I've been to that church, and the way that they're accepting, the way that they love, there were so many people that actually invited me home for dinner, and I couldn't believe it. And I had some of my other friends that came there that identify as gay or lesbian. And that's the way a church should be. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, how you live, they should be accepting, and they should treat you as their best friend. And so churches say that, but I feel like they need to act on it.
So it's more of like the human connection that some churches are missing, right? That's what you're pointing at.
Right.
I mean, sure, we can disagree on how to interpret a Bible text or whatever, but we
Right.
can still be friends and hang out for potluck, or, like go to your house, have a game night.
Right. Exactly.
Mm. So we're wrapping up now, starting to wrap up,
Hmm.
but kind of like, can you give me a little bit of, um, do you think your Adventism has changed? Like your commitment to Adventism has changed because of the way that people have interacted with you?
It has. It has. There was a time when I wasn't even sure if I wanted to still be an Adventist. There's been many times where I've thought about what if I just go visit another church, not an Adventist church. Um, I feel like my connection with God is different, and not as, I guess, as strong as it used to be. It's more of, um, hey, like when I'm praying, like, hey God, or dear God, whatever you say in your prayers. Um, well, here, let me put it this way: instead of talking to God as a friend, I kind of feel like I'm also walking on eggshells when I talk to God or
Yeah.
pray to God, kind of like I would in the church, walking on eggshells. And there's been times when I have just given my heart to God and been like, God, like I feel like I can't talk to you because of everything is saying it's wrong. Like I feel like you're not going to listen to me. I feel like you can't hear me. But the thing is, deep in my heart, I do know that He still hears me. And I feel like
Mm.
that's the reason that I haven't given up. That's the reason that I keep trying to have that relationship with God.
Do you feel like the Adventist church at large, maybe not like the local or like the people, like, because people are
Mm-hmm.
church, but do you think that the Adventist church at large is perpetuating oppression for LGBTQ individuals?
What do you mean by the oppression part?
Mm, well, your voice is not heard. You're a
Uh,
member of the church.
yeah.
You're not able to participate. You're not able to, do different things, or even just being accepted as a human being. Do you think that I mean, you pointed towards changes that need to be made in that area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but do you feel like you, you know, like the church at large, like the organization can do more, by, maybe educating like pastors better, or,
Oh
like
yeah. Oh
helping?
yeah. Totally.
What would be some of those like areas that you would like to see? I mean, we had an episode, where we try to talk a little bit about what pastors are being taught
Right.
nowadays, but like, what will you as a person, like, that identifies with the LGBTQ community, would like to see pastors understand first and
Mm-hmm.
foremost, so that they can transfer that feeling towards, the members, and then that, starts making a little bit of a change.
Right. Right. I think they can be told and taught all they want about how to respond and all of this. But until they meet the people that identify as somewhere on that spectrum, until they hear the stories that they've gone through, until they hear from those people how they want the church to react, how they want to be treated, how they're not different from anyone else, I feel like not much is going to change. They need to be put into the same shoes as the people that are going through these things. They need to understand that, um, even if the church isn't putting them through like shame or, like me, like I was almost kicked out of the church. Even if the church is not doing that to them, they need to understand that there are people around them, like friends, parents, family, that are putting them through those things. And I think being able to hear that from lesbian or gay or anyone on that spectrum if they hear those stories, if they are able to connect with them and become, talk with them, I feel like that would be so different. There was actually a seminar I went to, and this guy gave a bunch of facts, and I agree facts are great, but there was no connection to any stories. No one actually told what they have gone through. And I think, and it might be hard for people to just come out and say what they've gone through. I get it. But in just finding those people that are willing to share their experiences, share how much they still love God, they still want to work for God, they still want to do their mission work. And I love knocking on doors, but I don't do it anymore. To have people like that, I think would be so much of a help, along with all the other stuff they're teaching, obviously.
Mm-hmm. It seems like you would like to see a whole transformation, like something that really, really continues to make sure that, people are cared for, even amidst like a disagreement, and I
Right.
think I agree with that. That's something that's very important. Our time is, getting done here, but I want to thank you for your story. And it really makes me sad that I cannot share, your details, your info, your everything, just because of, this culture. I would like to break it, but you've asked me to not. So,
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sad to know that stories like this we need to start telling them more. But sometimes the only way that we can tell them is in anonymity. And I long for the day that we truly have, a church culture that is able to accept any story, and that it will not be, perpetrating violence towards any kind of group of people. But I want to thank you again for the stories, for the different things that you have shared. And as it is a custom, we like to give the final word to our guests. So go ahead, give us the final word on your journey and any other thing that you want to talk about.
I think that I'll just leave it with how I hope that the world will end up being. And for people that are listening to this podcast, how I hope that when they come meet someone who is lesbian or gay or whatever it is, how they treat them. I hope that they'll see them as a person. They're not going to just see what their gender is. They're going to see them as someone that God created, who God still loves no matter what they think, no matter what they say they are. They're going to understand that, maybe not all people will still want to be part of the church, but the people that do, I hope that they will accept them. They will invite them into their church, get them to be a part of it. Just understand that nothing has changed. They are still that same person that they always have been. They still love the same people. They want to be accepted. They want to be loved. You can have your opinions. You can have your beliefs, but just love us. Love us for who we are. And you don't have to accept, but just love us.
You've been listening to Disruptive Adventism. We hope that today's topic helped you to think and change something about your practices, about your faith, about your Adventism. If you want to subscribe, make sure to go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcast. We'll be there. And make sure to give us a review if you like what you're listening to. If you want to support, make sure to go to patreon.com/disruptiveadventism. It helps us pay our bills and produce the content that you're listening to. And if you want to socialize, make sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram or on Twitter, and hit us up whenever you need anything. We'll be there to support you. Thank you for listening today. We hope you join us next time. And as always, we invite you to be disruptive.